Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Boardroom Club today to our innovation conference, featuring executives from top tech companies across AI, analytics, cyber, fintech, quantum computing, CRM, and video, of course. My name is Yossi Garmazi, second year MBA here at Cornell, and I'm joined here also by two of my classmates and good friends of mine, Alvaro Jimenez and Amado Vargas. Alvaro?
Happy to be here, Yossi.
To be here.
So today we are fortunate enough to interview none other than Oded Gal, former Chief Product Officer of Zoom. Oded was responsible for the product development that changed our life at the most critical time, maybe, at the last century. But even before leading Zoom product team, he was at Cisco and Blue Jeans Network. So let's say it like this, the guy has some experience. And we are very fortunate to have you, Oded. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Oded, I thought to start, first of all, to ask you what led you to the tech world in the first place?
Oh, yeah, I kind of grew up in a family with everyone's being an engineer. So naturally, I went to study at the Technion, and also, always been like a problem solver. And so that's because of a natural path for me.
Yeah, and even before Zoom, you were deeply involved in the video industry with company like Cisco X and Blue Jeans Network. What drew you to this field?
I think I'm kind of very much into really communication between people and a visual person. So that combination is the natural path to video communications. And I, like you said, I was really following the path of this type of visual communication from really the early days of, WebEx and Cisco, and then a startup called Blue Jeans Network, and then Zoom really kind of followed the path and saw how this industry evolves. So that was a kind of a great journey for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I also was just wondering, I mean, obviously you are very famous for your tremendous success at Zoom, but is there anything special that or something particular maybe that you learned during your time before Zoom that contributed to your time at Zoom as Blue Jeans Network or maybe even at Cisco WebEx?
I have actually a great story about my son. When he was 2.5 years old, he was talking on the phone with his grandmother, and he basically got a new present. And so he took the handset, he pointed at the ball and said, "Grandma, look at my new ball." And so if you think about this and how it kind of impacted me, it really shows how humans communicate visually, naturally. And at that time, people were talking on the phone mostly, and video wasn't as popular as it is today. But I had this epiphany, and I knew someday when my son will be in his 20s, he will text and video chat only, no more voice calls.
Amazing story. And we also done a little bit research, and we noticed that between 2007 and 2011, Eric Yuan was actually the VP engineering at Cisco WebEx. Turned out to be also the founder of Zoom, by the way. And so I was just wondering, how was it working with Eric back in the days?
Yes, Eric and I, we share a passion for video. And I actually joined WebEx at a time in 2007 to lead the video team. And my mandate was to kind of regenerate and recreate the video of WebEx at a time that was really very basic. And we formed a team together and we built this really amazing group of engineers that rebuilt the WebEx video. And that team was actually the core engineering team of Zoom. And so that's kind of the history between WebEx and Zoom. But working with Eric is really something that is I was fortunate to do. Basically, he's someone who has an amazing discipline, but also he's very detail oriented, and he's kind of very kind of a focused person. And so when you work with him, you have to follow that, and you have to be very focused and really right at the target and the goal, and reach your goal. So that's my experience with Eric.
And if you like maybe going fast forward to the early days, not the early days, but to let's say 2019. So, I mean, everyone knows Zoom since the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, let's say 2019, when you went public, Zoom was, I think, the most successful IPO this year. What do you think led to the amazing success of Zoom even before the pandemic?
Yeah, so first of all, you can actually read about it if you Google the Zoom S1. It's a very good case study for an MBA student. So highly recommend it. But I think really what we did very well was focus on the product experience with a specific kind of zone into the video aspect. And what if you think about what was the situation in those days? There were many companies who did video communications. You had WebEx, you had Microsoft, you had Google. They all had some video capabilities, but it was more of a kind of a checkbox feature. At the time, more and more companies were starting to realize that video is essential to run their business. It was before the pandemic, mostly tech companies who distributed their teams for talent purposes and really wanted to bring those distributed teams together. And the best thing to do it at that time was really having these meetings and leveraging video to see each other and really to feel together as a team. And when they started using the other products, they felt, well, it's not really working. And when Zoom mandate was really to rebuild the video and make it the most reliable and high quality. And actually that was the core of the Zoom experience. If you think about, when you join a meeting and you see the URL for a Zoom meeting, you know that when you will click on it, it will always work. That wasn't trivial at the time. You had all these products that were out there, but you didn't really have the confidence to know that when you click on it, people will see you or even hear you, or you will hear them, because there are so many kind of issues with this technology that no one could solve. And Zoom had really a goal to make these experiences without any issues. And so from that perspective, when you have that type of quality and reliability, you make the experience much better because people don't think about the technical aspects behind it. They focus on the meeting itself, and they don't have this distraction of, okay, what happened with my video? What happened with my voice? I can't hear the other person, and so forth. That was the first stage. But then, because we managed to figure it out very early, we can really add capabilities for different use cases that came on top of the core video experience. So we made specific features for, teachers, like the breakout rooms. And we made all kinds of, security features for financial institutes that really had to have that kind of reliability and security when people join these meetings. And we added, the webinar product, and we added conference rooms, but the core of it was really that technology that was so reliable that one allowed that seamless user experience. And on top of that, once you get that early, you're able to run fast with the capabilities of the product.
And the development of Zoom products along the era is fascinating for me. I have another question maybe about the development of the product, as you said, because I know that at the beginning you started as more a B2B with B2B aspects, and then you transition to the B2C. If you can maybe elaborate about this transition specifically from the product development perspective.
So, we always have some percentage of, I would call it prosumers that were using our product. But because of, the pandemic, what happened, so many people really couldn't just live with a point-to-point video that, you know, FaceTime and Skype had. And they were looking for a product that will have high quality group video. And that was Zoom. And so that's why people, so many people, even consumers, really started to adopt the Zoom product. Now, that wasn't our initial kind of focus. We had to kind of adjust, and we had to really build the capabilities to be able to support the consumers. And, you know, one aspect of it is really the security of it and the privacy aspect of it. So we had to really change the whole, you know, login and password and join meeting capabilities to adjust to people who were full consumers. Because if you think about kind of a business product, usually there is kind of an administrator who can set up the security features and adjust it to the needs of the organization. But if you are just a consumer, an individual, you really, you know, from all kinds of, you know, technical capabilities, a lot of them can't figure out how to change the settings to adjust it to make it to their liking in terms of privacy and security. So we had to really change the whole entry of the meeting so that it fits everyone. And that was kind of a tough process for us initially. And, you know, for a short amount of time, the experience wasn't as smooth, but over time we kind of fixed it and we made it much better.
Maybe as a follow-up, do you think B2C is more sophisticated to develop in terms of the product development?
It is different. The go-to-market is different for sure. It's to some extent harder to monetize, where you have like when you sell to businesses, it's kind of a very known process. When you sell to consumers, you basically need to convert from, usually, right? You need to convert from a free product to a paid product. How do you do that? How do you really create that motivation to switch and start paying? And that's kind of the core aspect of consumer, and that's not an easy task compared to, you know, a business product that you kind of charge from day one.
Very interesting, and appreciate very much your answers. And also, if I'm taking you now to COVID time, where Zoom basically exploded, I was just wondering, I mean, for me, the breakthrough moment from Zoom in my life was Passover, when all of the family was together, but not was together, in the sense that everyone was in Zoom. There was like a couple of like iPads around the table, and we just celebrated Passover. But was any maybe special moment for you that you figure out, maybe as a chief product officer, hey, something is happening here?
Yes, Passover, that in 2020 was really kind of an aha moment where, you know, people were calling me directly, making sure they are ready for the dinner itself. But there was something else that even kind of more meaningful was a specific person who unfortunately lost his dad during the pandemic, and he had to do the Shiva. And he was really concerned that, you know, people can't come and, you know, speak about his dad and share stories about that, you know, the history and the heritage that his dad left. And so, of course, like everyone, he put out a Zoom call. And after the Shiva, he actually made the effort and called me. And he said, hey, I have to thank you, because my Shiva was actually more meaningful because more people were able to join. And I heard so many stories that I wouldn't hear if it was just a physical Shiva where people had to, you know, drive and come to our house and share the stories. I had, you know, hundreds of people that could join and tell me about my dad. And that was a lot of comfort for me in the situation of COVID and the pandemic.
Yeah, very impactful indeed what you done, and I guess like everybody else in the call and all the people that will see it later on super appreciate you for doing such a successful and impactful product. And moving on to, I mean, at the end, Zoom was the big winner out of COVID in a sense. But as you mentioned, there was a couple of other competitors and big one in the market like Microsoft Teams and Skype. Why do you think Zoom was so successful while maybe other not so much?
Well, I think, when Zoom started and several years after that, the focus on that experience was really the core that drew people to adopt Zoom. But, over time, both Microsoft and Google kind of caught up on the experience and the quality. And so it's not that different anymore. It's still better, but sometimes, when you get a Microsoft product and you say, oh, this is good enough, so a lot of people kind of compromise. And also for Google and Microsoft, it's also part of a bigger story of a productivity suite that Zoom doesn't have. Having that said, moving forward, kind of Zoom is trying to build their own story. So one thing that they're doing is they're adding more and more products around collaboration and communication. So they have a telephony system for businesses. They have, of course, the webinar and the whiteboard. And now they're adding more and more capabilities. The latest one is actually a full-on contact center, so that they're kind of a one-stop shop for businesses for all their communication needs, and adding now more collaboration capabilities as well. And that's one thing that they're doing. The second is they're trying to build more and more generative AI capabilities so that the experience is also superior. So they're trying to kind of, with their own focus and with their own grit and kind of Eric's vision, to try to regain that superior experience now with generative AI. Things like the meeting summary that allows you to focus on the meeting itself and not worry about summarizing or taking notes while you're in the meeting, where there's kind of a companion that does it for you. So that's kind of the next direction for Zoom, and it's kind of will be interesting to see how it evolves.
Yeah, very interesting. And maybe another question about the COVID time itself is that at the end of the day, Zoom exploded and was super successful, but you were the chief product officer at a time when, although you were super successful, it was a COVID time. How was it to develop Zoom product at a time where everybody basically were remote? And I guess also specifically when you have this kind of growth.
Yeah, that was a challenge. My team actually grew from 30 people to 300 in about 2 years, and almost all of them were hired online, so virtually, without seeing them actually face to face. So that was a challenge. But that's kind of how companies succeed. If you are able to scale fast and develop, that's kind of your advantage. And we did that. One thing that is really, I would like to share, that helped us kind of run fast and kind of align everyone together is the kind of a method for communication that started between product engineering, but then became for the whole company, which is the problem root cause solution method. So, every new feature, even, a new capability in any of the other organizations, even at the HR kind of department, you had to come and present these three aspects. You need to, that's called like a PSU analysis, where you start with, okay, what is the problem that you want to solve? And then you have to really go down deep and analyze the root cause. And many times when you go down to the root cause, you understand actually it's a different problem. And sometimes you actually find that there are multiple problems that are generated by this type of root cause. And only after you really get to analyze the root cause, then you can present the solution. And that became kind of a language inside the company where, remote people can communicate with each other and really succeed to focus and build the right things rather than, kind of do things that are not in line with the company strategy and with the mission.
Yeah, amazing. And what interesting about Zoom is that you didn't grow by 100% or 400%. You grew from almost 10 million customers to over 300 million customers in a very short amount of time. So how was it to scale so fast while still keep being innovative?
First of all, we were fortunate that we had this kind of product that was built by a very talented, experienced engineering team that was solid, right? If you don't have that many issues and the product doesn't have outages, you can focus on what to build next. So that we were fortunate to have that type of an engineering team that was so capable that could really run fast and build things that are so solid that you can build on top of. That's one thing. and I think the second aspect of it is really being able to be customer driven. And that's also one of the things that was pushed by Eric, where we had Zoom. We could bring the customers to meet with us and get the feedback. But we also internally were kind of getting feedback from all the other groups inside the company. And we had that type of sense of mission, right? When you're inside this type of situation where the whole world is kind of dependent on you, it also gives you motivation to really focus and help people and really not disappoint the users that you already have. And so that focus on the users and their needs was part of our drive.
Nice. And maybe last question for myself before we moving on to Alvaro, that has also a bunch of other great questions. My last question will be about the CPO priority, and specifically, I mean, you are the chief product officer and you grow so fast, but how do you balance your time between ensuring the product stability and also engaging with clients to keep being innovative and implement their feedback?
Well, that's simple. You just work 60 hours a week. Well, I'm joking. You have to balance, but really, grit is what I would recommend. If you're committed to your work and you have passion for your work, you don't see it as something that is a problem. If you are really into what you want to do and you have the fire in your belly, and that's actually one of the things that when I was hiring people, I wanted to make sure people had the fire in their belly before joining Zoom, because that is a really driver for productivity, for being able to do more. You think of it, you wake up in the morning and you already have ideas that you dreamt about because this is your passion. And then you wake up with a smile on your face because you're doing what you like doing. So having that fire in your belly is a key trait of a product manager.
Yeah, definitely. So that super appreciate you answering all of my questions. I learned a lot. And yeah, Alvaro, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Yossi. So Oded, really what you just touched upon just now, grid is really interesting. It's all the works of Dr. Angela Duckworth on this are fascinating, and I think it's true for a PM role and also for any leadership role, which is in our audience. But our audience is also really interested in the future of the technology and in particular of Zoom. And we wanted to ask you what are your thoughts on how video technology is evolving, and in particular the medium for this technology that we consume, right? We've been seeing in the past years there's been some interesting developments on the metaverse and holographic technology and mixed reality. So, for example, starting with the metaverse, what do you think about this new technology?
Right. First of all, kind of going back a little bit, I feel the world is ready for the next generation of collaboration communication. I think, Zoom is great, but at some point, having like a flat screen in front of you with squares of, representing other people, we can do better. Especially if you think about these technologies that you mentioned around virtual reality, mixed reality, and now generative AI. But I do feel that it has to be natural. And one of the problems of the kind of the metaverse is actually the need for a headset. And once you have a headset, then you need an avatar. So it removes the authenticity when you meet with other people. If it's an avatar that that is in front of you and not the actual person. So that for me is kind of off the table until this problem is being fixed. Having that said, you can still do 3D on screens, maybe special screens initially, maybe over time using generative AI. You can create 3D on regular screens so that it scales better. But you can still create this illusion or this feeling of same room experience, I call it, where you have people that are actually in remote locations, but during the meeting, they feel that they are actually in the same space. Metaverse is one way to do it. I don't think it's the right direction at this point because of the headset and the avatar need. So there are other things that are being kind of explored today. I think one example is Google Starline, Project Starline, where they're trying to kind of build that. It's still early days and it's still very expensive. And it's mostly for kind of only two people meeting with each other, but the concept is there, where you want to have two people sitting next to each other feel that they are in the same space. That's the future in my eyes. And if you just imagine how you can create videos from scratch using generative AI, there's so many things that can be done in the video space with this type of technology to create that illusion of same space and make people feel that they're together.
We are entering the space of science fiction and movies that we've been seeing for many years, right? That's
Exactly.
what you're describing. Yes.
Yes. Well, actually, yeah. If you go back about 20 years, there was a project by Cisco called Telepresence. They've built kind of dedicated rooms with you have half a room in one side and another exact half room in another place, and you would get into the room and you feel that you're sitting in one room with people in a different continent. It was like a round table that was virtually created. But the problem, it was all hardware and furniture, and it didn't scale, and that product kind of dissolved. But that wow experience was there 20 years ago. I think it can be recreated now in much better scale and lower cost using new technologies.
Definitely, the cost will go down, and then suddenly we will have another Zoom, but in holograms. So
Exactly.
moving a little bit forward, talking a little bit more about the video industry, and well, we've talked already about the pandemic impact and what that meant, but we've seen also maybe because of that time that we were isolated, that there's a lot of video companies that benefited during COVID, and then suddenly struggled after the reopening, right? There's Vimeo on 24, just to name a few. And so what would be next for the video industry? Do you foresee some consolidation in the sector? Is consumption going to go down, or what do you think about this?
I think there will be consolidation. There will be less, companies that will provide these services, but there will be also specific use cases that can be solved, especially with the new technologies. I can give you an example of a startup I'm working with called Gigaverse, who's actually trying to build a product that will allow podcasters to have live video sessions for their podcasts and allow remote attendees and the audience to actually join the podcast to ask questions or to participate and share their own opinions. And it's very heavy with generative AI in the sense that podcasters have a problem today. They're shy from live sessions because there's so much to do and there's so much of a production to make it a professional podcast. But with generative AI, you can have a virtual producer that takes care of moderating the chat, bringing up questions, running polls, fact checking. All of the things that are being generated by a production team can be done with AI. And so that's kind of one example of kind of a new idea in this space where generative AI can come in and disrupt some kind of a use case in video communication.
And now that we just touched upon AI, you're seeing all the changes that are happening in many industries, and in Zoom in particular. What would you think is the future, immediate future for Zoom? You talked about the new tools that are being incorporated. Is there any novelty with regards to the AI technology that you think could be of use aside from the transcript?
Well, in general, I would say that Zoom's focus in terms of leveraging their own LLMs, leveraging their own knowledge and expertise can allow them to really leverage generative AI in a way that others won't. And so they can provide a better experience. They can add capabilities that augment the meeting or the communication session, or leverage the data generated by the communication sessions to kind of create, more data, to create analysis of, processes inside an organization. So their specific focus on collaboration and communication can help them build generative AI capabilities that will make them shine. That's kind of the direction I think they're taking. And generative AI is a new technology. You don't know exactly how it will evolve. So it's kind of a risk factor, but we will see. Will it be kind of the open AIs and the Microsofts and the Googles that will create the best experience, or the specific companies that have expertise in their domain that will do that? That's, we'll see who does the best experiences, but that's the direction they're taking right now.
Fascinating to see where we are at. And then before I give it off to Amalo for a couple of questions, I have the fun part of the interview, which is personal questions for you. So outside of work, you must have a way of relaxing. Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I actually enjoy gardening, and I specifically Japanese gardening. So I do have like a Japanese influenced garden in my backyard. So that's my kind of hobby right now.
And
It's
aside from
very
garden,
zen.
very zen. That's what I was going to go for. And any book that you have read lately that you would recommend, or a movie?
There's a specific book I always recommend that influenced my professional life and my personal life. It's called Positive Intelligence by Shazad Tamim, and it's actually, the idea is that in your mind you have forces, negative forces and positive forces, and that book helps you enhance the positive forces in your head, the sage, and that kind of impacts your whole life and impact my life specifically. I recommend that book.
Interesting. And one last question for me is, okay, now at this stage, you've done this job for a while, moving on to new things. What keeps you motivated?
I've always felt, passionate about communication, about connecting people. I feel that in my current role, it's not the same as kind of building the product itself, but more guiding and advising others what to build and how to build. And so that's my thing right now.
It also looks very interesting. All right. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to give the word now to Amado. Please, Amado.
Thank you very much for coming here right now. As a current PM, it's very, very thankful to hear from someone who's as knowledgeable as you are. Something that I must ask, working in Silicon Valley, there is a vast difference between a great PM and an average product manager, I'm sure, as you would know. You brought up different philosophies, so KPSU analysis, understanding the root cause before just jumping to the answer, also collaborating with your engineering team, having the right people around you. So understanding all of this, PMs have to understand the product, and they also have to collaborate. In your opinion, product managers who succeed, what are their core fundamental attributes that you've seen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel strongly about, three aspects of, a product manager. First of all, what I mentioned before, that kind of fire in your belly. You have to be passionate about the product. You have to kind of live it. You have to, use the product. When I was interviewing people, I would ask them questions about the Zoom product to see whether they're really kind of interested in the role, in the sense that they know the product that they're about to manage. So that's kind of one aspect of it, really knowing the product, to have that passion, have that grit, and kind of the fire in the belly, I call it. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is really being a leader and a team player. And the leadership in product management is actually very complicated, in the sense that not everybody is reporting to you. You're not necessarily a kind of a manager. You can be an individual contributor, but still be a product manager. But how do you influence other people, like engineers and salespeople, and support people and UI designers, to really follow the strategy of the product, follow your lead in terms of defining the product? It's not straightforward. So you need to be a special leader that can kind of harness people to work alongside you for the benefit of the product. That's the second. And the third one, you really need to be kind of balancing between data and gut, meaning you can, some product managers only rely on data. Some people that are product managers just rely on their gut feeling. But actually, it has to be a combination. You have to know how to kind of balance between these two kind of inputs. One is your thoughts and your knowledge of the product, and how do you feel, and this, does it really answer the problem and solves the problem that it's supposed to? Do you have that gut feeling? And on the other side, you can measure whether it does solve the problem by using all kinds of tools to kind of measure the data and understand from the data, and kind of balance these two inputs to make a decision. These are the three things I feel are kind of the most important for a product manager.
Yeah, I love those three elements. Those are three great values that I got to learn. Secondly, I just wanted to know, obviously you're very, very knowledgeable, and do you still look to evolve your skill set? And so how do you do so? Is it just simply through conversing with people? Is it through reading? I know you talked about investing in generative AI. So what is a way to always remain sharp? Because me working in the field of product, I'm always looking to improve my skill set.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect of being a product person, is because technologies evolve. You have to be on top of things. You have to kind of progress your product, and so you always need to learn more. And that's kind of one of the things I learned from Eric Yuan, the Zoom CEO, and his motto was be better every day. And so the mantra was, after every day, you go back and you retrospectively look at your day and you say, what did I do good, well, and what do I need to improve? And that would kind of, once you kind of think about that aspect and say, okay, yeah, I didn't know this aspect of the product, I have to learn it, or I didn't do this, I didn't do that well. That's how you kind of get better and better, by retrospectively looking at every day. You have to be very disciplined to do that, because sometimes, oh, I had a terrible day, well, let's forget about it. No, you go back and think, what happened? Why did it happen? And you get better by doing that, and kind of every day you think about what you can do better.
That makes sense. It's consistency. Thank you very much, Oded, and I'm passing it back to Yossi.
Yeah, so Oded, thank you very much again for answering all of our questions. We are super fortunate to, and I guess all of us learned a ton from you. So thank you very much again. And for everybody else that will watch it later on, stay tuned for we have chairman of Wix and founder of Ireland, Sierra, Payoneer, and a bunch of other cool companies. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.